Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and all the people out there sitting there and watching on YouTube or Facebook, looking for any topic they can enjoy or something you can watch and then pick apart. And tonight I'm going to talk about a few things that I've seen over my lifetime, and you'll decide whether you enjoy them or whether you want to pick it apart, and that's your choice. I can remember in the 1950 era, the Ministry of Transportation and Highways at that time used to have some 3-ton and 4-ton trucks with dump boxes on the back. And what they would do in the wintertime, they would go and they'd put a couple of guys in the back of the truck. There'd be a driver in the front, a couple of guys in the back of the truck, and there'd be a handrail, a pipe railing around the outside of the truck. And the guys would climb in the back of the truck with a couple of shovels, and the guy would drive down the highway and stop at a hill. And then the guy would either back down the hill or drive up the hill slowly. And the two guys in the back would throw sand over the back of the tailgate on the truck, sprinkle sand out on the slippery spots on the hills. They do that on the hills and the corners, and that was the way they done it. It was done by spoon feeding the sand over the back of the truck onto the road. And it was kind of dangerous because, the guy in the back of the truck you're subject to the guy driving, letting the clutch out too fast, and you had to hang on to the railing on the side. The railing was there so he didn't fall over the side or fall over the back. And it did for a number of years, but they didn't put sand on everybody. They played on the hills and curves, mainly on the steep hills. And then after that, they went to a system to have a hole in the end gate, where they cut a hole in the tailgate of the truck about 2 feet square. And then they had a sliding end gate that would close the hole up and down. And then they had a little machine on the back. They called them one-mile helicopters. They were a little gasoline motor, and they had a little fan on the bottom, so the sand would come out of the back of the hole in the back of the truck and trickle down on the bit of a chute and down onto a little bit of a spinner. And the truck would drive down the road and spin sand off in some of the areas where they thought they needed it. Could be on hills or on curves. And that worked for a while, but it wasn't very effective because the sand had lumps in it and the thing was always plugging up and giving trouble. They had that for a number of years, so we went to shoveling it by hand into putting it through a hole in the end gate with a little bit of a spinner arrangement on the back, powered by a small gasoline engine. They had that for quite a number of years. Then they had another kind of tow-behind one where they had a differential off of a car with a couple of wheels on. They towed it behind the truck. It had a spinner on it. And as you went along with the truck, the sand would go out onto the spinner, and then the spinner would rotate and kick the sand out on the road. We had that for a number of years. And then in the Langford shop in Victoria, they developed a tailgate sander, and it was a sander that replaced the tailgate on the truck. We take the tailgate off and put this unit on, and there was a chain across the back, and the chain would rotate and pull the sand across the back of the truck, and it would drop down a bit of a chute on the side onto a spinner, and so the truck would drive along, and you raise the box up, the sand would slide back and down across the chain out onto the spinner. And that was used successfully for quite a number of years. But it didn't have a very good control. You either got too much sand or you had to have a bit more sand or a bit too much. And so eventually they went to a control system where there was a control in the cab of the truck. And there were two knobs on the control unit. Pardon me. One was for the chain speed, so the chain would come down. When you raise the box up, the sand would go to the back, and the chain would drag the sand over to the side of the truck, to the right-hand side, and then the sand would fall out onto the spinner, and the spinner would rotate it. So there was two control knobs for the driver, one for the speed of the chain, and one for the speed of the spinner. And that was used pretty successfully for quite a while. And then we went to the automated version, That was used on the tailgate spinners for a number of years. So the automated version was hooked up to the speedometer. So the speedometer kept track of how many times that the drive shaft turned around on the vehicle, how fast it was going. And it was tied to the speed of the chain and also to the spinner. So you could drive down the road, and if you drove 20 miles an hour, the chain would run so fast. And if you wanted to speed it up, you could speed the spinner up or speed the chain up or slow it down. And that worked very successfully. And the automated version was tied to the speed of the truck. So if the truck went faster, usually up to about 35 miles an hour, and they would dispense the right amount of sand because there was a computer measuring how many times the drive shaft on the truck rotated, and that controlled the amount of speed to drive the chain and the amount of speed for the sander, for the spinner itself. And that was used successfully for a number of years. And then there was the hopper sander unit, where you take the dump box off the truck and put a hopper sander on there, and the hopper sander itself carried the sand. And the control unit on the back of the truck kept track of the speedometer, how fast the speedometer was turning, the cable on the speedometer, and it would turn the chain speed to a certain amount of dispensing speed and the rotating spinner to a certain speed. So you could drive down the road at 25 miles an hour or 30 miles an hour and set if you wanted to have a distribution rate of so much sand, you could set the thing, and if you drove this little truck a little faster, it would automatically adjust the speed of the chain and the speed of the spinner, and it's automated speed control, dispensing control. And that went on for a number of years, and we started doing that in the early 70s, and that went on until 1988 when they privatized. And so we've had dispensing control on tailgate sanders and also on hopper sanders now for a number of years. And that means to say that you can put a really nice dispensing speed on there, up to about 30 miles an hour, and you can dispense sand, a real heavy application with lots of sand, or a medium application or a low application. And the sand required is depending on what kind of surface you're putting it on, whether you've got a really icy surface or whether you've got light snow or heavy snow. So the truck goes out and he plows the road off and dispenses sand as needed. And it's dispensed automatically by the speed of the truck. So if you're driving 30 miles an hour and you need a certain amount of sand, they set the computer, and if you drive a little bit faster, it gives you a bit more. If you drive a little slower, it's a little bit less. So we were able to get the sand out of the gravel pit, into the back of the truck, onto a hopper sander or a tailgate sander, and drive it down the highway and dispense the sand onto the highway as needed. So today we have that system on most of the vehicles now on the highway. And the Highways Ministry trucks were all set up before they were all sold off. 1988, they were all sold off, and they had automatic dispensing on them. So you'd have a light application, medium application, or heavy application, and they were all done automatically. Now what happens now, we weren't putting it on with too much cost in mind. We were more into accident prevention. So the driver would go down the road, and if it was snowing heavily and they needed a good application, put a heavy application on, or a medium, or a fine application, whichever you needed. And it was left up to the driver to see what the conditions were on the road. So in some cases you had two trucks out. The center truck would be plowing with a front plow on, plowing the road, and with a front plow, and then the guy on the right-hand side would be having a plow as well, but he'd have a tailgate sander operating. And both trucks would have sanders if they wanted to use them. So both trucks could put sand out, or the center truck could plow, and the other truck could put the sand out. Normally the sand is put down the center of the road. So when the traffic drives on the sand, it gets spread around automatically by the tires on the vehicles. So we have the equipment. The contractor has all kinds of fancy equipment out there now. It's all set up for automatic dispensing. The only thing that we're stuck with right now is the cost. And I think when it comes to accident prevention, we can't take a look at the cost, because there's no tracking of costing. let's say we roll a semi-trailer along the road, and the semi-trailer is a write-off. It's got a load of groceries on, and the truck is rolled, truck is smashed up, and somebody's hurt. You might be looking at a $2 or $3 million accident. Now, if that's traceable to glare ice conditions on the road, there's no way of penalizing the contractor for doing that. So there's no incentive to save money. So in order to save money in the operation now, we have to have a lesser amount of accidents. The more accidents we can prevent now, the better it is for us, because it keeps the ICBC costs down. It also keeps the death rate and the injury rate down. But as long as we have the cost of the sand being affected by, oh, don't put it out, it's going to cost too much money. Don't put the sand out. Oh, we can't have that, it costs too much money. We can't have that type of thinking. Our thinking has to be based on accident prevention. That means to say that at about October the 1st, we have to hire extra staff, we have to train the staff, and we have to have enough equipment to go around. Now, when Merle Sproul was here in charge before privatization, they used to make all the districts hire enough people. So October the 1st, enough staff there to run 24/7. 3 shifts, 24/7. Right until the end of March. Now what happens now, if you don't have enough shifts on, let's say you get a heavy snowfall, and the snowfall is coming down, and it's halfway through October, and a heavy snowfall. Now, if you only have enough trucks and operators to plow one shift, and your snow is coming down heavily in the afternoon shift or in the evening shift, so the day shift's going to go home, and there's going to be nobody left to plow. So the snow is going to build up on the highway, and you're going to have compact ice, and you're going to have formalization of ice on the highway, accidents happening. And the one thing that I see that I don't agree with, but I have no say other than being a taxpayer, we're using liquid de-icer, so we got a snowstorm going on. It's okay to put liquid de-icer on, but the liquid de-icer freezes. So it doesn't matter whether you've got snow out there and it's melting, and it melts, and then it freezes at night and it turns to glare ice, so you've got a glare ice condition, or you put liquid de-icer on there, and you get to a certain temperature condition, and that freezes and you've got glare ice. There's nobody who can drive properly on glare ice. Contrary to what people are telling you, oh, no problem, you just got to slow down. Well, if you ever try to stop a truck on a glare ice condition, you can't do it. So we have to change our thinking. We have to start thinking about accident prevention. This is what the old highway system did. We had 3 shifts. We had enough equipment, 3 shifts of operation. So in winter conditions, we're out there plowing and sanding 3 shifts as required. Now, if you get all caught up, and the roads are all cleared up and you've got them all sanded, of course, then the guys are going to be sitting around. But you don't have to sit around, because the trucks can be washed, they can be cleaned, they can be serviced, and there can be new cutting edges put on, the chains repaired, and there's snow to shovel off the bridges, and there's signs to clean and repair. There's lots of work to do. And they can also clean up in the garage, clean windows, all those things to do, but we have to have those guys out there. The current system of hiring a guy or 2 guys and say, well, we'll call you when we need you, that won't work, because people have to make money to eat. So you hire a guy to drive a truck for you, and we say, well, look, we'll hire you. We might need you if it snows, so we'll call you. So the guy sits at home and doesn't earn any money. So when you want him, he's working at Mackenzie, or he's working at Fort McMurray. So you have to have those constant shifts on there. And if you don't staff your operation, now when you're bidding on a job, you got to think about what is provided, what we need to do in the wintertime. And if there's snow on the roads and there's snow plowing to do and sanding to do, there have to be crews out there. Now, we can't run guys on 3 shifts of overtime, because that doesn't make any sense either. So you work 1 standard shift, and then you can have 1 or 2 shifts after that, but you can't run on overtime. You can run overtime for a couple hours if it's an emergency, but the general operation is Merle used to run three shifts, 3 times 7, 21, 24 hours a day. Not too much spacing in between, because if you get spacing in between, you get you get ice buildup on a highway. So there has to be a little bit more thought put into accident prevention. Unfortunately, right now it's the cost of the sand is too much, so we have to drive out there and have accidents, major accidents. We haven't killed enough people yet. Our goal in highways maintenance is accident prevention, nothing else. Keep the roads safe to drive on. And that's the goal. That always was the goal. And we started out with having no sand put on the highway at all because we didn't have the equipment. Then we went to 2 men shoveling off over the back of the trucks. And then a little bit small sander operating with a hole cut through the tailgate. Then we went to dispensing out the side and out the back on tailgate sanders and hopper sanders. So we got the equipment now. Lots of equipment around, but it seems like we don't have the right of equipment in the right places and the right amount of manpower. And that's why we're getting slippery, icy road conditions, the same as we had last year. So it needs to say somebody has to do some serious planning. And the planning we had before was the regional director would tell the districts, we're going to have 3 shifts, 24/7, October the 1st until March the 31st. And that's the way it was. And we have to go back and think along those lines again in order to have accident prevention. Otherwise, we're going to have accident prevention not working for us. We're going to have deaths on the highway, very expensive accidents, and the costs of ICBC going through the roof. So as a retired highways worker, that's my point. Agree with me or don't agree with me, be my guest. Have yourself a nice evening.